What do you think about when you hear the term biopic? Is there a specific type of movie you expect from them? Do you get excited to learn about this notable person, or do you think of a stuffy, by-the-numbers story? For decades, biopics have been a staple of the film and TV industry. For years and even today, biopics feel like surefire Oscar bait. Just the announcement of a certain biopic can elicit Oscar buzz. Just look at King Richard or Being the Ricardos from 2021. It feels like producers are dying to get their hands on the rights to any person at the shot at box office and awards glory. But now I personally roll my eyes at the thoughts of a new biopic in the works, more specifically an artist or musician's biopic, because I want to be clear that there are so many amazing biopics or movies about real events. Just from the last decade, we got The Social Network, The Wolf of Wall Street, Selma, and plenty more. And just last year, we got Spencer, one of my favorite films of 2021. But even with all these great ones, the by-the-numbers biopics are still being pumped out yearly, especially when it comes to movies about artists. Mostly because biopics these days follow the same formula. The Elvis movie is just around the corner, and it seems to be following all of these plot points as well. They feel like visual Wikipedia pages instead of interesting and unique stories, just a string of scenes together walking through the most notable parts of a person's life. I think the best example I can think of is the movie Straight Outta Compton, following the rise of NWA. The first half of this movie is genuinely fantastic. A group of young men in an oppressive community coming together to find a creative outlet to share their voice and stories with the world. But then the second half becomes a Wikipedia list-off of events. Dr. Dre meets Snoop, Ice Cube writes Friday, Eazy-E gets AIDS. It's a great example of what these movies can be and then what inevitably they fall into. So when I decided on a whim to throw on At Eternity's Gate a few years ago, I was shocked at how fresh and alive it felt. And just a warning, there will be some spoilers for the movie. At Eternity's Gate is a movie about Vincent van Gogh, but it's anything but traditional. According to the back of the Blu-ray, it says, Julian Schnabel's, the director, At Eternity's Gate is a journey inside the world and mind of a person who, despite skepticism, ridicule, and illness, created some of the world's most beloved and stunning works of art. This is not a forensic biography, but rather scenes based on Vincent van Gogh's letters, common agreement about events in his life that present as facts, hearsay, and moments that are just plain invented. And I think this statement from the filmmakers is what makes it so inventive and refreshing. At Eternity's Gate feels like a filmmaker taking all the right lessons from the countless biopics over the years. It was made by director, writer, and painter himself, Julian Schnabel. On the commentary track for the Blu-ray, he talks about how he had a deep connection to Van Gogh because of his own background in painting. He even made a film portraying the life of Basquiat in the 90s. And I feel like he was the perfect person for this film because of his and his crew's approach to it. He says countless times how this isn't supposed to be the definitive Van Gogh film, simply his interpretation of who this person might be, and more specifically the interpretation of a man who has a deep and profound love for painting by a man who feels the same way. So by using letters from Van Gogh's time and other items, they craft a portrait of a man he might have been. And I think it's a much better approach to the genre. Immediately, the film puts you in the perspective of Van Gogh by using a POV of his perspective. Most of the film is shot on this beautiful and kinetic handheld from Van Gogh's literal viewpoint. We see the world through Van Gogh's eyes and get a sense of what the world looked like and felt like to him, how he interpreted events, and how his literal view shaped how he painted. Schnabel said he found these bifocals at a vintage shop and thought it could be a unique way to show how Van Gogh sees the world, and one reason why he paints in such a unique way. There are so many shots where half the screen is focused and the other half is blurry. It's literally like we're looking through his eyes. They also do this cool thing where towards the back end of the movie, they just start putting a yellow gel over POV shots, partially again to understand how Vincent saw the world and how that translated to his art, but also because it just looks really cool. And Schnabel pretty much says so himself in the commentary track. It's just a fun and visual flair that we never get in a traditional biopic. These movies should be fun and creative like the people they're telling stories about. Obviously, Van Gogh didn't see the world through a yellow tint, but making bold and creative visual statements gives us a better understanding of his character. It's a mix of naturalistic and experimental filmmaking together. Instead of showing us what Van Gogh might have been like, we feel what he might have been like. We skip through time, and we hear voices in his head, which is another great touch from the sound design. Something that always stood out to me about this movie, how we'll watch a scene play out and then immediately we'll hear the conversation in Van Gogh's head as he attempts to reckon with what he just heard. Another wonderful choice that gives us this sensory experience within the film. Right from the beginning of the film, we get a great scene where the camera frantically follows Van Gogh around his room as he takes his shoes off and places them down, and we follow this strange and bizarre camera angle. I remember being confused by what the scene was initially trying to achieve. Then all of a sudden he starts painting and I realized it was them depicting his famous painting, Shoes. What I loved about it was that bizarre handheld cinematography was how Van Gogh must have felt when he was getting ready to paint something, his mind constantly racing, going in multiple directions, until he starts painting. Then all of a sudden everything calms, everything begins to make sense. In this movie, a lot of time is put into Dafoe's Van Gogh talking about how important painting is and how much it means to him, how he believes it's the only gift God gave him, and it's the only thing he wants to do with his life. It's the only thing that makes sense to him. So many biopics about artists seem to focus on their family life or how they grapple with fame, and there are things in this movie that maybe touch on those, but I love how much time this movie dedicates to just watching and understanding the craft of painting. We get to see that process. We follow him when he goes to these fields and how he looks and views the world. Now, we should talk about the man himself, Willem Dafoe. Just an outstanding and rich performance. Dafoe is significantly older than the actual Van Gogh was when he died, but I think this interpretation of the character works quite well, adding an extra layer of sadness to him. What I really enjoy about this depiction of Van Gogh is the tenderness that Dafoe brings to the character. While he has these manic outbursts on occasion and seems to have problems controlling his emotions at times, you always feel for this man and his struggles, and I deeply cared about him. His conviction for painting is always so strong, and he truly has a good heart. Schnabel and Dafoe treat this character with so much respect. There's a sincerity and dignity in the way he talks. He knows what he's doing is right, even if no one during his lifetime cared for it. I think the conversation he has with Mads Mikkelsen's character is especially great. How this man is questioning everything about Van Gogh, but it never seems to bother him. It might a little, but he knows deep down that he has this gift, something special to show the world, and even if people don't appreciate it now, maybe one day they will. I found that rather beautiful, because at the end of the day, this film is really a love letter to painting, expressed through one of the greatest painters the world has ever seen. Schnabel also does a great job of making the viewer feel claustrophobic and overwhelmed when necessary, like when a group of kids approach Van Gogh in a field while he's painting and surround and question him. We see him begin to panic, and we panic too. The camera moves in these frantic close-up shots and corner us in. There's another shot where we cut back to the opening scene as Van Gogh tries to position a woman for a painting, and he becomes increasingly erratic trying to do so. The camera gets close, and the POV again gives us this uncomfortable idea of what it must have felt like to be there. A lot of this movie is spent on Van Gogh's relationship with other people and how, in pretty much every way, he was an outcast. Socially, he's seen as a fool, he barely gets to see his family, and his colleagues and contemporaries don't truly respect or appreciate him. This is mostly portrayed through Oscar Isaac's take on Paul Gauguin. They have a unique friendship, and to a degree, Gauguin admires Van Gogh, but the two are never seen on the same level critically. And it's heartbreaking to watch. Van Gogh is this sad, lonely man who just wants connection with people, and the only way he knows how to is through paintings that nobody wants or likes. He's truly a tragic figure. The biggest story choice the movie makes is in the portrayal of his death. The film portrays the theory proposed by Stephen Dafoe and Gregory White Smith, authors of the 2011 biography Van Gogh, The Life. They argue that Van Gogh did not shoot himself on July 27, 1890. Instead, they believe he was accidentally shot by a friend's 16-year-old brother pretending to be a cowboy. The book goes on to argue how it seemed unlikely Van Gogh killed himself, noting the upbeat disposition of the paintings he made immediately before his death, how in letters he described suicide as sinful and immoral, how it would have been difficult for Van Gogh to acquire a gun considering his well-known mental health problems, and a handful of other reasons. Whatever the case may be, this death far more suits the character we see for the duration of the film, and portrays a man who, despite his tragic life, wanted to hold on to it and paint as long as he could, instead of a man who took his own life tragically. And while I wouldn't go as far as to call this a happy ending, I think there's something sweet about giving him a happier ending than one might expect. At Eternity's Gate is a really special movie. I think it's visually and thematically one of the most unique biopics in recent memories. It genuinely got me interested in Van Gogh in a way I never had before. It made me appreciate painting and the creative process in a whole new light. It made me believe that the biopic genre can still find new ways to be unique, and I hope it inspires people to become more creative when approaching the biopic genre. And if you haven't seen it, I implore all of you to go watch it.
I thought an artist had to teach how to look at the world, but I don't think that anymore. Now I just think about my relationship to eternity.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of the video down below, or what you thought of At Attorney's Gate down below. If you like this video, like and subscribe, and let me know if there's a movie you'd want me to talk about in a later video. Thanks guys, bye.